Hi, class. It's Dr. Lindner. What I'd like to talk about and focus on in this next few minutes is just to review the homunculus again. This is such an important part. So, when we look at the brain from the lateral view, again, we could see the occiput back here. So, we know that this is posterior because it's right next to the cerebellum, which is posterior. Frontal lobe is anterior, it's in front. Now, the central sulcus right here. There's the central sulcus. In front of it is pre, behind it is post. What's in front of the central sulcus? Pre-central gyrus. What's behind it? Post-central gyrus. Because the frontal lobe is involved with initiation of movement, ambition, drive, the precentral gyrus is connected to this. It's part of that frontal lobe. So motor information is initiated at the precentral gyrus. When I think of parietal lobe, we think of being able to sense and differentiate left side from right side and being able to identify all parts of your body. So parietal lobe does that. The postcentral gyrus is where all of your sensory input finally ends. So all the sensory input ascends, it goes up, 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 and its final destination is going to be somewhere in the postcentral gyrus, depending on what part of the body it is. Okay? When there is postcentral gyrus issues, this is when people have body image disorders like, look, that arm is so fat or that leg is so skinny. Look at that calf on that side, or professional bodybuilders, they can pick up these subtle differences in one bicep being a quarter of an inch smaller than the other bicep, right? These are postcentral gyrus or parietal lobe imbalances. And these are some pretty major issues. So now let's take a look at pre and postcentral gyrus on a real brain. So here is the central sulcus. You can see that it goes all the way down right to that temporal lobe. Right there's the temporal lobe. So the central sulcus is the only one that goes right to the tip, all of it. So here's precentral gyrus in front, and here's postcentral gyrus. So the gyri, right, think of like hills and valleys. So the gyri are the hills, and the sulcus are the valleys. Okay, sometimes they're called fissures. In this case, it's a sulcus. So let's look and remember, precentral is motor, postcentral is sensory. For what? So look at this very odd looking picture. Look at how big the lips are and the tongue and the fingers. The homunculus is the model of the human body which reflects the amount of brain tissue dedicated to each part. This means the parts with more sensory and motor nerves are enlarged, and the parts with less innervation are much smaller. So it results in this very distorted body scale, right? It's a pretty bizarre and grotesque figure. So the areas that are involved with the genitalia, the hands, the fingers, the face, the eyes, these are all going to occupy lots of brain power and brain space. So when we look at the red arrow, this is pre-central, and then the blue is post-central gyrus. So we know that the postcentral gyrus, this is all sensory. Somatosensory, body sensory. Somatomotor is precentral. So when you look at this structure, the homunculus, they take the body and you can see that it's stretched out in a very bizarre manner over the precentral and postcentral gyrus. So the red, this is parietal lobe. frontal lobe. This is part of your frontal lobe, and this is part of your parietal lobe on this side. So you can see how much brain space the fingers get, the face, the head, the genitals, right? When you look at the larger part of the body, kind of like the large quadriceps, even though the muscles are pretty immense, it doesn't take up quite enough as the eyes, the tongue, the lips, the mouth. This takes up so much. So it's not the size of the body part that equates the amount of neurons that it will occupy in the brain. It's more of the precision in terms of motor movement, right? Like you can move your pinky so delicately, you can move your eyes so delicately, your tongue, your lips, your facial muscles, your facial expression. So all of this occupies so much, even though your quads, your quadriceps are huge muscles, it just doesn't take up a lot. Okay? So precision of movement and the amount of sensory detail that it picks up, that's what predicts how much brain space it's going to occupy. That's the homunculus.